Hi everyone, this is Dr. Richardson and I am back with chapter 14. Okay, so as always, please remember to read your textbook, that your lecture is supplemental to your textbook. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. So chapter 14 explores social emotional development of individuals during early adulthood. So again, early adulthood is a period of significant transition and growth marked by formation of intimate relationships, the pursuit of careers, and the establishment of independence. So within chapter 14, we will explore stability and change, love and close relationships, adult lifestyles, marriage, and the family. So let's look at stability and change from childhood to adulthood. So temperament. Temperament is a person's characteristic behavioral style. It is thought to be largely influenced by genetics and is relatively stable over time. It can influence how people interact with the world and how they respond to different situations. Attachment, on the other hand, refers to the emotional bond that develops between a child and their primary caregiver. It is thought to be critical for healthy social and emotional development. So, attachment styles formed in early childhood can influence relationships throughout life. So, let's look at attachment. So, romantic partners fulfill some of the same needs for adults as parents do for their children. Adults may count on romantic relationships to be a secure base to which they can return and obtain comfort and security. And then consistent and positive caregiving over a number of years is likely an important factor in connecting early attachment with functioning later in development. All right, so let's look at secure attachment style. So adults with secure attachment styles have positive views on relationships, whereas adults with avoidant attachment styles are hesitant about getting involved in romantic relationships. Anxious attachment styles, these adults demand closeness and are less trusting. They are more emotional, jealous, and possessive. So chapter 14 also talks about intimacy. So intimacy is a key aspect of love. It involves self-disclosure and sharing private thoughts. This can be a hallmark of a close relationship. And then Eric Erickson, he found that early adulthood is a sixth developmental stage in which he thought that this stage was identified or marked through intimacy versus isolation. Intimacy involves finding oneself while losing oneself in another person. Failure to achieve intimacy can result in social isolation. So we also have romantic love. Some friendships evolve into romantic love, also called passionate love. Then we also have affectionate love. Love is more than just passion. It occurs when someone desires to have the other person near you and has a deep, caring affection for another person or the other person. Chapter 14 also talks about how there are variations across different cultures and there are cultural restrictions that are evident as well. So, relationship education for adolescents and emerging adults. So, traditionally, relationship education programs have focused on helping committed adults, couples strengthen their relationships. Recently, programs have been developed for adolescents and emerging adults. So, relationship education consists of interventions to provide individuals and couples with information and skills that produce positive romantic relationships and marriages. There is something called falling out of love, betrayal of trust, emotional or financial drain can be the cause of this. So the collapse of a close relationship can feel tragic, but sometimes our happiness and personal development benefit. This is especially true if you are obsessed with a person who repeatedly betrays your trust. Chapter 14 also talks about adult lifestyles, single adults, adults who live together, married adults, and divorced adults. There are stereotypes associated with singleness. Stereotypes associated with being single range from extremes of glad to be single to being in despair. Most are somewhat between these extremes. So there are some advantages to being single. Single adults have time to make decisions about their own life course and develop personal resources. Chapter 14 also talks about married adults, changing the norm of male female equality in marriage. Increasingly high expectations have produced relationships that are more fragile and intense than earlier generations. And then some characteristics of marital partners predict whether marriage will last longer. Both women and men with a bachelor's degree are more likely to delay marriage, but are also more likely to get married and stay married for more than 20 years. Divorced adults. So in the United States, nearly half of first marriages will break up within the 20 years. This statistic highlights the significant prevalence of divorce in American society. Here are some factors that may increase the likelihood of divorce. We have alcoholism, psychological problems, and infidelity. Divorce rate by years married. Here is a chart here that should be also listed within your textbook. We also have remarried adults, remarriage rate. The remarriage rate in the United States have declined in recent decades. There are some challenges associated with remarriage, and there are also stressors associated with remarriage. Similar relationships are LGBTQ adults. These relationships are similar to heterosexual relationships in satisfaction and conflict. A recent study indicated that adults in same sex relationships were expecting levels of commitment, satisfaction, and emotional intimacy similar to those in adults in different sex relationships. So, again, chapter 14 talks about becoming a parent. During this time frame or during this transition. So marriage, the birth of a child will not save a failing marriage. This is a common myth that can lead to disappointment and further strain on the relationship. A child is not a possession or extension of the parent. Having a child does not automatically give parents a second chance at achievement, and then parenting is not does require learning, practice, and support. There are many resources available to help parents develop the skills that they need. The book also talks about dealing with a divorce, the 6 pathways, gender and communication styles, vary based on gender. Men and women may have different ways to express themselves, interpreting messages, and engaging in conversations. Understanding these differences can help improve communication and build stronger relationships. So, again, women's development, women often place a high value on relationships and focus on nurturing connections. They frequently try to interact with others in ways that will foster the other person's development. Gender experts note that women are more relationship oriented than men are. The differences in orientation is often highlighted in our culture. So there are cultural differences, but many suggest that it should be valued more highly. Again, chapter 14 does discuss gender and relationships. So, women friendships. Women tend to have closer, more supportive friendships. They often share their feelings and experiences with each other, creating strong bonds of trust and intimacy. Men friendships, on the other hand, men tend to have more competitive friendships. They may engage in activities that involve physical or mental challenges, fostering a sense of camaraderie and respect. And then the last slide talks about gender classification, transgender, and being, I guess, the gender classification of the 3 different types of classifications that they are when it relates to gender. Okay, so this chapter 14 Again, I would like for you to go back and to read your textbook. It's definitely a time frame or a time period in which individuals are transitioning and trying to find their independence, forming intimate relationships, trying to figure out what they would like to do and how they fit in the world. If you have any questions about any of the content that I have provided during this lecture, this PowerPoint, your text, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Again, I will see you next chapter, and I hope you have a great week.